You have just put out a very interesting report that is called a Viksit approach for India to achieve $1 trillion in exports. Why this report and why now? What's the crux of these suggestions?
So first of all, thank you, Siddharth, for having us. And yes, the report, we just thought it was appropriate to launch this report because we have been talking about Viksit Bharat. The Honorable Prime Minister has set the North Star for a developed India. And in doing that, I think one of the key things really has been the contribution that exports could make to the Indian GDP. Now, within that, we know that services exports is something that India is known for. I think we have done very well when it comes to GCCs, professional services. IT, of course, has been a standout. But it is really the focus on merchandise export, which has been a bit challenging. We do believe that with everything that has been done over the last many years, there is a lot of enablement which has been caused for India's merchandise export to now grow so that we can actually aspire for a $1 trillion number by 2029. India's merchandise exports have been growing by 14.4% in recent past. They have been serially growing since the liberalization of 1991. But with so many things like the PLI, like the Make in India, and the large areas of enablement that have been caused with some of the other challenges that we have identified, if we address some of those challenges, and we create certain further enablements that we are seeking in the report, the framework, the Viksit framework as we are calling it, can pivot India to the 1 trillion aspiration of exports and merchandise, which would be a stepping stone to India's Viksit Bharat aspirations. And we thought no better time to release it just before India's Independence Day.
What are the key elements of this proposed approach?
So I think as I mentioned, Siddharth, I think the Viksit framework it's a framework. I mean, it's really a bunch of horizontals and verticals that we have identified. There are certain enablers. I think when we talk about the Viksit approach, and if I can take you through, I think the most important thing is that what's the kind of value addition and volumes that can cause us to be a 1 trillion. Historically, we have exported a lot of materials where the value add component has not been so extensive. Now, everybody recognizes that when you talk about value addition, it could take a few years for that value addition to happen. But how do you enhance value addition? And that's where we have made certain recommendations. Then the focus on it, this growth has to be inclusive. When we looked at the data and we picked up 3 sectors, we noticed that the contribution of the MSMEs, which is really the backbone of the industry or of the GDP of the GDP contribution, that has not been very extensive and it's not very inclusive. So we've made certain recommendations to make this growth inclusive. The K stands for, I would say, knowledge, because one of the biggest gaps that we have today is skilling. And, in a world which is disrupted and we keep talking about technology and so on and so forth, I think it's very important that there is knowledge which is imparted to our workmen and others to make sure that we are able to reach that aspiration that we have. The S stands for sustainability. I think it's extremely important that today when there is when we are dealing with something like CBAM, everybody wants to buy sustainable products. Whether in India or indeed outside, etc. Sustainability is a big disruptor. Our products have to be sustainable, if they have to be competitive in the international markets. The I stands for some other infrastructure enablement and repairs that we need to make sure that all of this is smoothened out and the cost of factors of production continue to reduce and become more competitive. And of course, T stands for technology, and the way technology can continue to be a disruptor but an enabler to whether it is about industry IoT or whether it is embedding more and more of technology on the shop floor so that we are able to embrace technology and then use technology to create trust in what we produce so that we can get value for what we do in India. So that's a Viksit framework that we have put together, which can pivot India to a 1 trillion export aspiration on the merchandise side.